I think every opportunity is a choice. You can choose to build trust or diminish it. You can choose to be connected or be disconnected. You can choose to attune or misattune. And the choice that you make in that moment is going to determine whether you're working well.
That's Nidhi Tewari. She's a 2026 Thinkers50 Radar Award recipient and keynote speaker on work culture and well-being, drawing on 13 years of clinical expertise with high-performing leaders. Her new book, Working Well, How to Build a Happier, Healthier Workplace, The Science of Attunement, shares how attunement can help deepen connections both at work and at home. So learn 1, the next evolution of emotional intelligence, 2, how to improve collaboration and performance with the check-in framework, and 3, how sharing your own experiences can unintentionally shut others down. And if you want a quick summary write-up of the actionable wisdom that Nidhi shares, I recommend you sign up for the free Gold Nugget email newsletter, which you can find at awesomeatyourjob.com. I'm Pete Bacchitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Nidhi. Nidhi, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Pete. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm excited to chat here. Can you tell us, what does this word attunement mean, first of all? Because we're going to be saying it a lot.
Yeah, we are going to be saying it a lot. Attunement is our moment-to-moment responsiveness to our emerging needs and the emerging needs of others. It's our ability to perceive, interpret, and respond to the emotional, social, and functional needs of ourselves and others.
All right. Well, you're giving flashbacks to psychology courses in which I remember the way that I was such a hack. The way I got through learning a lot of definitions and for the multiple choice was thinking, okay, is this psychological word a good thing or a bad thing? Because then I can cross out half of the answer responses. Like, oh no, this is a bad thing. Cross out good things. I'm left with 2 choices. So it sounds like that's a good thing. Nidhi, is that correct?
It's a great thing. It's what we want to aim for. Think about when you really are vibing with somebody, you feel in sync with them, they get you, you feel understood and heard. That is the essence of attunement, except it goes a little bit deeper, and I'm sure we're gonna dive in.
Okay. So that sounds handy. Is it possible to overdo it on attunement?
Yeah, I mean, you can be overly attuned. This is what I typically would see with some of my clients back when I was a therapist. A lot of my clients that had a trauma history were overly sensitized to people's cues. So, for example, like a subtle change in eye contact or a shift in body language or tone of voice would all of a sudden signal to them that, oh my God, I must have done something wrong. They're mad at me. When in reality, it was just they were tired after a long day of work and had nothing at all to do with them. So yeah, there are instances where we can be hyper attuned and of course, everything in balance, just like with most things in life.
Well, and could you share with us, your book is called Working Well. How is this attunement relevant at work? What's it do for us?
Yeah, so it's imperative at work. If you have learned about emotional intelligence, which is all about how we pay attention to our own empathy, how we regulate our own emotions, how we're showing up in our interactions, attunement and relational intelligence is the next evolution of this. It's not only how we're paying attention to what's happening within ourselves and how we're showing up, it's what's happening between us in an interaction, in a conversation, in a difficult moment. And it's really handy in terms of a skill set to develop so that you can relate better with your colleagues, have a better relationship with your boss. And of course, it extends beyond even the workplace to our romantic relationships, our friendships, our familial relationships, et cetera, too.
Okay. Well, could you share a story with us in terms of someone who was not doing so well in the attunement and that had some consequences at work and then they upgraded it and what happened for them?
Yeah, I mean, this is where I have tons of examples. There's lots of people that are really well-intentioned and think that they are self-aware and are connecting well with people. And then in reality, it's a total miss. So one experience that I can share is of my own. I once had a boss who was teaching me how to teach. So I'm a executive coach, and part of her process was we had to submit these verbatim transcripts of what was said in a coaching session. And then she would review it and criticize us basically in front of the group. So what I need in those moments is I need a little bit of a softening of the feedback. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. I can handle criticism. I can handle somebody telling me what I need to do better. But she went in on me. I remember so vividly, she said to me, Nidhi, you're doing it wrong. Why do you keep doing it this way? You're giving the answers to your coaching clients way too easily, and you're not letting them struggle enough. Like, I don't understand why you're not getting it. And I wanted to completely turn off the Zoom camera, hide in a corner, eat some Haagen-Dazs. I wanted to cry my eyes out. I was like, what is happening right now? That was a moment of misattunement. Now, sadly, she's not a leader who necessarily learned how to do it better, but I can share an experience of somebody who got it right. There was a time in my life where I lost my best friend to stage 4 brain cancer. And this happened within a month of me taking a new position. Previous employers had started off being really understanding and empathetic, but then something shifted and they told me to compartmentalize my grief. And so with this new team that I joined, I was absolutely dreading sharing this loss with them because I just assumed that they were going to can me, that they were going to say, too bad, so sad. Here's 3 days bereavement leave and you got to come back in. But this leader, her name was Kathy. She was so attuned to me. Her first response was to, first of all, call me. I texted her. She immediately called me. She asked me, Nidhi, tell me about your experience. I know how devastating this is. You were with your best friend as she was transitioning, and she really connected with me on an emotional level. And then more importantly, when I came back to work 3 weeks later, because they donated their paid time off to me, I had 0 hours accrued. They gave me 3 weeks. They didn't check in on me to see about KPIs or to be able to get a sense of how I was delegating my work out. They instead really asked me questions about Laura, who was my best friend, about how I was grieving. And they gave me a space to help maintain her legacy. So that's an example of a leader who's really attuned. They're connected. They're in sync with what you need. And it made a tremendously healing impact on me and became the impetus for the work that I do today.
Well, that's very beautiful. And I'm certain in terms of the dynamics of the team and your relationships and your ability to trust them and to disclose and to collaborate, I would imagine, get a real big boost from that kind of thing.
100%. Yeah. I mean, it really showed me how imperative it is to be connected and caring in the workplace and what attunement can really do. And it's interesting because we talk about attunement in the context of parent-child relationships or even our romantic relationships, but nobody had studied it in the context of the workplace. Yet I saw time and time again through the work I was doing with Fortune 500s that this was the skill set that was really the linchpin for connection at work. And yet nobody had studied it and nobody had examined it or definitely was not teaching it. And so we're the first ones to do it. And that's why I wrote the book and do so much speaking on this topic now.
Well, that's powerful. And I'm thinking about, we had a great conversation with Michael Sorensen on the podcast, who wrote a book called I Hear You, all about validation. And he is just like, everybody is just starving for this stuff. I feel like I have this wild superpower when I do it, at work, with my friends, in romantic relationships. It's powerful. And it sounds like there's a healthy overlap between these two concepts. And I would love to get your take on the first, to do some of this research and work at work. Do we have any hard-hitting data insights about this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, let's dive a little bit deeper into attunement, which is really broken down into 4 key skills. So this is the brass tacks of this concept. And we studied this in the context of a bunch of different outcomes: psychological safety, individual and team productivity, connection and team trust. We looked at so many different factors here. And so those 4 key skills are flexibility, reading cues, self-regulation, and collaboration. So flexibility being our ability to adapt and be agile in our interactions. So, for example, if a colleague has something that's top of mind and you also have something top of mind, that you're able to shift gears a little bit, adapt to what their need is in that moment. Doesn't mean that you don't eventually circle back. It just means that you're flexible with them. It also means that you're able to adapt your intervention. So let's say that a colleague of yours is struggling with anxiety and you have another colleague who also has an anxiety disorder. Recognizing that no diagnosis is a monolith and that we need to be adaptable in terms of how we support each person, right? So that's what that flexibility piece is. Reading cues, being able to notice what's not said in an interaction. Somewhere around 60% of our interactions are based in nonverbal cues. So we're looking at body language, demeanor, leaning in versus leaning away. And also, of course, the cadence, the tone, and the literal words that are being used in an interaction. So being able to read those cues and shift gears accordingly, super important. Next, we have self-regulation. So this is your capacity to manage your own emotions so that you can connect with another person's emotional state. And there's some helpful tools that we can get into, like 4-7-8 breathing, being able to just ground yourself and be present in this moment so that you can then maintain connection with the other person. And then the last is collaboration. So this is basically letting the other person know that we're an allied front, we're on the same team. And I think even more importantly, that you're going to be learning from them just as much as they're learning from you. So what we found is with mastering these 4 key skills, flexibility, reading cues, self-regulation, and collaboration, all of those main outcomes that I just mentioned, psychological safety, team and individual productivity, connection, so cohesiveness within the team, all of that improved as a result. And it ended up being the key to working well.
Well, yeah, I like that clear rundown there. And so let's hear it. What kinds of results do we see when folks upgrade these 4 skills?
Yeah. So, I mean, their productivity improved significantly. So not only were they able to focus and do better work individually, but now they were working better together as a team. The ability to trust and have confidence and have faith that the people on their team actually have their back improved. All of these different factors are absolutely the crux of a healthy work culture. And ultimately, it affects the bottom line, right? When people are disengaged, distrusting, they feel disconnected from people, it costs the global GDP $8.9 trillion. So that's 9% of the global GDP being missed as a result of this level of disconnection. So if we can leverage these skills of attunement, we start to close in that gap and bridge the gap to fostering better connection and just better team relationships overall.
All right. Well, let's tick through each of these here. With regard to flexibility, are there a couple key flavors or varieties you recommend of engaging for folks? I think I had a guest who, she said, I might write a book about, we need to have an inner monk and an inner David Goggins in terms of just the calm, deep, and then the screaming.
I love that.
And so those would be 2 of the extremes, I suppose, with regard to the flexibility and how you may adapt in your approach to someone. Or how do you think about the different varieties that we might flex into?
Yeah, I mean, for somebody like myself, I'm a very open book person, right? Like I wear my heart on my sleeve. And so somebody would need to adapt to that. But there are lots of people in the workplace that don't necessarily have that trust or don't feel safe opening up. And so part of being flexible is taking it at a slower pace and just meeting them where they are in that moment. Like we can't dive super deeply into connection and relationships without first building that foundation of trust. And sometimes we get frustrated when we're trying to ask questions and check in with somebody and they're giving you kind of cursory answers. I think part of that flexibility element of attunement is recognizing, okay, this is just the stuff that they bring to the table. And that's all right. They move at a slower pace than perhaps I would. I can be adaptable and just take it slower. And eventually they will get to a place where they feel comfortable opening up to me. So that's kind of an example that I can give you about how flexibility typically will look like amongst colleagues or even between a boss and an employee.
Okay, so that's one domain of being flexible in terms of how disclosing, open we're being in a given moment or stage of a relationship. What are some other domains of flexibility?
Yeah, so I think that you need to be able to adjust your body language. So sometimes people, paying attention to how you're showing up in your interactions. Some people like closer proximity. Other people like to keep you at a distance. You have to kind of read what's going on with the other person. Another example with flexibility would be being able to shift gears to adapt based off of what their particular needs are in that moment. So the most common example I would see is in the give and take of a conversation. We kind of come in with our things that we want to share and maybe different touch points in the workplace of this project and where we are with this level of communication with the client. But if the person that you're interacting with has something else that's top of mind, just being flexible means, adapting based off of where they are in that moment. So perhaps in the beginning of the meeting or in the beginning of the conversation, you start off with where their concerns are. You validate, you listen, you actively listen specifically. And then you might be able to shift gears towards the end of the conversation to bring it back full circle to where you wanted to begin. But being flexible means that it's not always about you, right? In the conversation, that we need to be be able to shift as needed based off of where they are in that moment.
Okay. And to the notion of flexibility, I guess this whole attunement business, it seems very generous, kind, attentive, giving. And I suppose I'm thinking one side of flexibility is there's a time to give, and I think sometimes there's a time to take. And so how do you think about that dimension?
100%. Absolutely. There needs to be balance in relationships. Attunement is not about, let me self-sacrifice to meet everybody else's needs. And this is the biggest pushback that I typically get when it comes to this framework is they're like, but what about my boundaries? And what about my mental health and well-being? Nobody's telling you to become somebody's therapist. Nobody's telling you to abandon your own needs in service of others. But there's a way to be able to prioritize both, right? So we need to be adapting to other people's needs, but also it's okay to ask for help, ask for support from other people. And they then need to be attuning to you in that moment, right? So there is that give and take that is absolutely critical for any type of relationship. And I would argue is imperative for a healthy relationship. Otherwise, it becomes very unbalanced and you feel like you're giving, and nobody is there to support you in your time of need either.
Okay. Well, let's hear about some of the key cues to read.
Yeah. So part of the reading cues is going to be really paying attention to the nonverbal. So what's their body language doing? Are they closed off or are they open when they're speaking to you? Sometimes we even subconsciously cross our legs, which can signal that I might not be as open to what you're saying as you might think I am. Often even the cadence of the delivery, right, influences how what's being said is being interpreted. So if somebody, when you ask them, hey, how's it going? And they're like, oh, I'm fine. Things are great. Just another day in paradise. Are you actually fine? Or are you just trying to skate past through this conversation so that we can get to the moving past it and talk about business now, right? Which is often what I would see in the workplaces. People are so quick to try to not open up. And that in and of itself is a signal to you that they're actually more stressed than they're letting on, that perhaps there's actually something going on underneath the surface that they're not disclosing to you. Another element is literally when we are in conversation and we're uncomfortable, we will lean away to put distance between ourselves and the other person. We do this subconsciously, and it's our way to be able to try to protect ourselves and create space. So pay attention to those cues as you're sharing something with a colleague or with a leader. Are they literally putting distance between yourself and them? Because that might mean that you're evoking discomfort within them. And you might need to shift up the way that you're sharing feedback or sharing the information that you're disclosing to them in that moment.
Well, this is fun. I'm reminded we had an interview with an FBI interrogator, Joe Navarro, who wrote about body language. And he suggested, a number of things here, but he said the feet can often be one of the biggest tells in terms of once those toes are pointed away, that kind of means, yeah, I'd like to be out of here now.
Yes.
And it seems to be a pretty good reliable indicator of that kind of thing. I'd love your pro tip here in terms of flexibility and reading cues, combine them together. You said if someone seems like they're in a rush, I'm fine, and they're kind of want to move on to the business. Well, now here we are. On the one hand, we could accommodate what appears to be their desire. Let's go ahead and move on into the business. Or you could note, it sounds like this person feels rushed or stressed. So you could attempt to delve into that. But then it seems like, I see like there's branching possibilities. That might not go so well. It's like, hey, the cue was, I didn't want to go here. And now you're trying to go here. Don't care for that.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think that we have to be respectful of people's boundaries. But what I would push back on is that it all doesn't have to happen in that exact moment, right? So you ask this question around, are you okay? How are you doing? They give you the cursory, I'm fine. Okay, they want to move into business. We respect that. That's great. But then how about at lunchtime, we stop by and we say, hey, I know that you're working on XYZ project. How do you feel like it's been going? Has it been stressful? Are there certain elements that you feel like you're doing exceptionally well in? Can I support you in some way? Right? So now we're asking a different kind of question. We're not just, I also feel like, how are you doing? It's not a great question. It just is, it's too broad. I don't feel like people overall as a society, I don't feel like we're very open when people ask us that. So if instead we can ask something specific and get a little bit deeper and a different interaction with them, they may be more obliging towards you, right? They may be more willing to share a little bit more deeply. And typically it takes 3 goes at it before somebody really opens up to you. So don't get discouraged if at the first interaction, they're a little bit guarded, a little bit, putting distance. Follow up a couple more times. And if they continue to be cursory, okay, then respect that. But if they start to dive a little bit deeper, roll with that. Be curious, ask more questions.
Okay. Well, and then self-regulation. What are your favorite moves here?
Yeah. So self-regulation, this is what I think most people are not great at, because our own discomfort is evoked in our interactions. Like, we often think about triggers in the context of our friendships, our family relationships, our romantic relationships, like that annoying friend that only hits you up when she needs something from you, which gets on your nerves. It really irks you. Yes, that's a trigger. But we are also triggered in the workplace, right? So think about the times where you've come up with a good idea, you shared it with a colleague one-on-one, you're about to share it in a team meeting, and they beat you to it. They take credit for it. Really, really frustrating. Or that leader where every time that you receive an email from them, your body tenses up because you just know it's about to be some sort of criticism or, some sort of you being underneath the microscope. And so those are also triggers at work. So if we can self-regulate, meaning we manage our own emotional state and we are able to manage our emotional responses in the moment, that ensures that we're not reacting and we're instead responding. So a couple of tips to use here and a couple of techniques that I can share. One is 4-7-8 breathing. This is a science-backed technique that has been proven to reduce your blood pressure, provide more oxygen to your brain and to your organs, and it helps to re-engage that critical thinking center that tends to go offline when we're stressed and when we're triggered. So the way that it works is you breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds, you hold in the breath for 7 seconds, and then you exhale through your mouth for 8 seconds. And what you'll notice is if you do this 3, 5, as many times as you need to calm down, you really feel a bit more grounded, and it gives you a bit of space between reaction and response. Another really easy one that you can do if you're just sitting at your desk and you're just like, oh my God, I'm feeling really stressed out, is you could just rub your arms. You can do a quick stretch. Things like that bring you back into your body and helps you to get out of your thinking brain and back into your physiological state, right? It helps to regulate that nervous system response. The last one that I'll share that's really simple is you can just turn your head from side to side and scan the room for threats. And what this does is it helps to orient you because the orientation centers of your brain are located in your eyes, ears, and neck. And you're basically signaling to your nervous system and to your brain that, hey, nothing is physically threatening. I'm okay in this moment. Like, I can take a deep breath and I can relax.
It's funny. The word threats is there's so many. I'm looking. I see a printer light just flashing, and I find that slightly annoying. Now that I didn't notice it before, I guess I've scanned and identified the smallest of threats. I suppose what we're trying to accomplish here is you realize, oh, hey, there's no one coming after me to do an attack.
Exactly. Yeah. And even that you're emotionally safe in that moment. It's like, okay, this moment might feel really bad to me, right? I got an email from HR. That sucks. Nobody wants to get that email, right? As long as it's not a layoff email, that's, a different story. But like, let's say that HR is like, hey, I want to touch base with you. And you have no context of what that means. And so you immediately jump to the worst conclusion possible, which is I'm getting fired or I'm being reprimanded in some way. When in reality, they just want to do your onboarding or they need you to do this like yearly training, right? That's the type of threat that we're scanning for. And if we could just take a moment and be like, okay, what are alternate explanations for what's going on? Like once we soothe, then we can start thinking it through. And that will help to de-escalate you emotionally when we jump to these negative conclusions in the moment.
Okay. And then collaboration?
Collaboration, super simple. It's just simply letting the other person know that I'm on your team. I have your best interests in mind. You also have my best interests in mind. And we're going to be working together to a mutually agreed upon outcome. So this is where we're going to be reciprocating in a relationship. That give and take that we referenced earlier is going to be part of a collaborative approach. It's also making sure that you're in a learning position, even if you're in a position of leadership, or let's say you're the team lead or somebody who's heading a project, that you're also opening up the conversation to learn from the other people on your team, because that collaborative approach helps to foster psychological safety and trust amongst yourself and the people that you're working alongside.
So I understand that sometimes when we're trying to help, to encourage, to fix a situation with somebody, that we're doing it with the best of intentions, but that in this attunement world can totally be a miss. Can you unpack some of this for us?
Yeah, absolutely. It is well-intentioned, right? When we jump in to give advice, it's because we feel helpless and we want to be helpful. And so what ends up happening, though, is before the words even leave the other person's mouth, we're like, well, have you tried this? Did you try setting better boundaries? Have you tried using Trello as like an organizational tool for you because you're feeling overwhelmed, right? Like we offer all of these solutions to people. And what ends up happening is that, one, we're trying to bypass their emotions to get them to a logical state of mind. And that's not what they need in that moment. Two, it also feels very presumptuous. Like we've somehow gotten the other person's dilemma figured out better than they have it figured out. And so instead of it feeling validating or feeling as though we're being helpful to that person in the moment, it actually creates distance between us and creates what I call connection gap. So, we don't want to jump towards fixing. And there are a couple of other traps that we tend to fall into as well. Like we tend to avoid. So we either change the subject, or what I see more commonly is we offer platitudes like, don't worry, it's going to get better. Or, you'll be fine. You'll get through this. Once again, well-intentioned, but we're emotionally bypassing, and it invalidates the other person's emotional struggles in that moment. And then the third most common connection gap or misattunement style that I see is people that are connectors, which sounds really good, but it's not actually the style that we want to aim for. Because connectors are the ones where when we share something with them, they immediately jump in with, oh my God, me too, totally get it. You're struggling with burnout? I've been burnt out for 7 years. You have a toxic boss? I dealt with a toxic boss for over a decade. Let me just tell you all about him, right? And what happens is, yes, well-intentioned, we're trying to relate to the other person. But unfortunately, the spotlight that was supposed to be shown on them has now shifted to you. And they go from a place of needing support to caretaking you. So those are not the ways that we want to show up and support people in the workplace. Instead, what we want to do is we want to be an explorer. We want to be a person who is connected, who asks great questions, uses curiosity as a way to be able to dive a little bit deeper. That we're good listeners. We hold space. We actively listen to what the other person is saying. And if we can just explore, go a little bit deeper, it really does help the other person to feel seen, heard, validated, and they feel much more connected to us as a result.
Okay, that sounds lovely. I'd love your take. When folks are trying to do this, where do they fall short?
When they're trying to be an explorer, what ends up happening is that their own discomfort is what gets in the way, which is why we default to being a fixer, an avoider, or a connector. And it goes back to that self-regulation piece of things, right? Our own discomfort is what often leads to the connection gaps. So if we can just manage our own feelings of helplessness, our own feelings of what do I say right now? I don't know what to do. Like they are coming to me sharing about how they have mental health concerns. I'm not a therapist. I don't know what to say in this moment. That's our own discomfort bubbling up, right? And subconsciously, that's then going to be read by the other person because they're attuning to you in that moment. They're going to pick up on it and they're going to pull back as a result. So we just simply need to manage our own discomfort, manage our own emotional state, regulate, and that'll help us to stay connected and be in step with them in those moments of uncomfortable conversations that come up.
Yeah, I think you really zeroed in on something there. And I'm thinking about when someone dies, it's, I think it's very common. I've discussed it with my mother that folks, they're uncomfortable. They don't know what to say or what to do. And so they might just not show up at all, or it's just awkward because they don't know what to say. Because in fact, there is nothing you can say that's just going to say, oh, you know what? I am not sad anymore. Like there's no such words that exist. So it is uncomfortable. And so your message here is, well, that's kind of a you problem, kind of learn to manage that discomfort. And do you have any pro tips on what do you say when it's just hard and you have no idea what ought to be said?
Yeah. In those situations, it's less about what you say and it's more about how you show up, right? So you're exactly right. There are no perfect words. There's nothing that you can say when somebody's parent passes away that's going to make it better for them. So that can't be the goal at the end of the day. It's not, how can I alleviate your grief for you? It's instead, how can I literally just be present with you in this moment, listen, and if you're willing to share, for me to ask some really good questions, right? Like, hey, I know that this loss has hit you really hard. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing right now to take care of yourself? Or what's been the hardest part for you losing your parent in this moment, right? Sometimes just simple questions like that open up the dialogue. And sometimes there are moments where people don't want to talk about it at all. And instead, if you're going to attune to them, then okay, then you just show up, you watch Netflix with them, you order some takeout, right? You talk about anything else under the sun besides the fact that they just lost this person that they love so desperately. And sometimes that's the most attuned response. And so I just want people to take away that it's not the words that you're saying. There's no perfect statement. It's instead, how can I be present and pick up on what's really needed by the other person and show up for them in that way, in that moment?
I think that's great. And I like the range of things you shared there. And I'm reminded, my mom, she's told me this story several times. When my dad died, she had a good friend. And there's a lot of this going on. Like, oh, I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry if you're lost. Right? She had a good friend who's like, you know what? You're going to have a lot of people showing up, bringing you food. How about I just clean up and organize your refrigerator and freezer? And she's like, that would be amazing. Thank you. I mean, it was perfect for her in that moment because that wasn't on any of our minds, but it was an outside perspective, and it was so useful and considerate. Well, we remember it decades later. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think to build on that, that's what your mom did in that moment, or what she received in that moment, rather, was exactly what I would recommend as well. Just provide people a menu of options. If you don't know what to do and you want to do something, better than not showing up at all, better than just, oh, I'm just going to ask them, hey, what do you need right now? Which people don't know what they need in a moment of grief. They just don't. You can just simply say, hey, like your mom received from whoever that person was, like, I noticed that your fridge might need a little bit of help. Can I pop in and take care of that for you? Hey, I noticed that groceries might be something that is difficult to run while you're dealing with all of the logistics of funeral planning. Can I take care of that for you? Hey, I noticed that you might need a little bit of vacuuming around like the basement. Can I take care of that? Right? Which of those sound like a good option to you? It reduces the decision fatigue that people feel, and it still is showing up in a way that's meaningful to the other person. And most importantly, it gives them agency and empowers them with choice in a moment where they feel completely out of control. It gives them some level of control over how you're going to show up for them as well.
I also want to hear about your check-in framework, some sophisticated use of acronym there. Can you give us the quick rundown on these? What is it for and what are the steps?
Yeah, so it's for conversations just like this, right? Where you're dealing with somebody who's disclosing something difficult with you. They're burnt out, right? They're struggling with depression. They just lost somebody. They're caregiving for an elderly parent. And so check in, as the acronym, C is for curiosity-based questions. So questions that are open-ended, like, tell me more about, could you help me to better understand? Would you be willing to share a little bit, right? They just are an invitation to the other person to share a bit more about what's going on. Then when they're sharing, H is for hold space. We need to be open, not judgmental. We want to listen intently, and we want to resist the urge to jump in or to fix it. So we just need to be present in that moment. E is for exploring support. So once you've heard what the challenges are, you've been able to hold some space for them. Now you need to empower them. So this is where that menu of options is very helpful. And one of my favorite questions to ask is, what's been working for you in the past? What has worked for you in the past? And what hasn't worked for you? So that you can now explore support that's going to be meaningful and advantageous to them. Once you explore the support, then you have to congruently respond. So that just simply means follow through. If somebody says that they need more frequent check-ins, give them more frequent check-ins. If they tell you that part of what will help to alleviate their stress is you covering a meeting for them, cover the meeting for them, or communicate effectively that you won't be able to do it. Because if you don't follow through and if you don't communicate, it's going to be detrimental to the trust that exists between you. So that's what congruently respond is all about. And inevitably, when we drop the ball, We have to know how to repair. This is a little bit of a stretch with the K, but that's okay. We're going to know how to repair, meaning we have to acknowledge the misstep, validate the feelings, and create a plan for how we're going to prevent this from happening again. So acknowledge, simply saying, I know that I dropped the ball uncovering that meeting for you, and I'm really sorry. I know that that set you back in terms of your workload. Validate. I can imagine that was really frustrating for you. You probably feel even more stressed now because I dropped the ball and now you're having to do double time to make up for that. Plan. What I'm going to do going forward is if I'm not able to cover a meeting for you, I'm going to make sure to give you at least 24 hours notice so that you can make adequate plans for somebody else to cover that gap. Boom. It's as simple as that. That's how simple repair can be. You notice how I didn't give excuses. I didn't try to explain away what happened, why I didn't cover the meeting. I just simply acknowledged, validated, and planned. And then IN is interrupt discomfort. So using all those emotional regulation tools that we just talked about earlier, and reset, which is another framework. But basically, it's about being able to move from reaction to response.
And I love your hot take. With regard to our emotion regulation, do you have any novel, wild emotional regulation tricks?
Yeah. I mean, the most helpful one that I can share with you is it's by the acronym RESET. So super easy, but this has been a game changer for me. It's been a game changer for my clients, both therapy clients and Fortune 500 clients. It just helps you to pause a little bit so that you can respond. So the R in RESET is for reaction. Just noticing your physiological response. Do your muscles tense up? Do your palms get sweaty? Is your heart racing? Did your breathing get ragged? Because our physiological cues are going to precede our emotional or cognitive cues, meaning what you're going to notice physiologically is going to come before what you're thinking or feeling in that moment, right? So just notice what's happening there. Then we have to notice the emotions. Dr. Daniel Siegel, who's written many a New York Times bestselling book, talks about name it to tame it. And the research has found that if we can just simply put a label to an emotion, it helps to regulate our nervous system. So something as simple as just acknowledging out loud, I'm feeling embarrassed. I feel caught off guard. I'm feeling stressed. I'm feeling fearful, anxious, numb, exposed. That will help to regulate your nervous system. What I don't want you to do at this step is to try to think your way through it. Because once again, that critical thinking part of your brain is offline, and we need to do the next step, which is soothe before we're able to explore. So soothing is that 4-7-8 breathing, grounding techniques, rubbing the arms, scanning your environment, body scans. Those are all going to help to soothe your nervous system and help to reduce that physiological activation. Now we're finally going to explore. So we're going to notice past-present connections, because the way that we respond in this moment is not actually just about what's happening in this moment. It's often linked to past experiences. And a mentor of mine once told me that if your reaction is hysterical, its roots are historical. So just pause for a moment and think about, okay, how does this look like, sound like, and feel like a past experience? Have I been caught off guard before? What does this remind me of? Just linking and connecting those dots is really helpful. And then finally, the last T is for tell. Just talk to somebody about it, process it. Being in connection and in community is also a nervous system regulator. And if you're at work in your cubicle and you can't, journal about it and then share it with somebody when you get back home that you're able to trust and you can be vulnerable with.
All right. Well, tell me anything else you want to make sure to mention before we hear about your favorite things?
I think that the biggest thing that I want the audience to really be reflecting on is, where do you fall on the spectrum of interactions, right? Like, are you the fixer? Are you the avoider? Are you the connector? And how can you start practicing some of these key attunement skills to move towards becoming more of an explorer? I think if we're able to just develop the self-awareness, become more in tune with ourselves, we will naturally become more in tune with others.
Big thanks to Nidhi for sharing her wisdom with us. And big thanks to our sponsors. Check them out. One sponsor to check out is Shopify. When you're starting something new, what ifs abound. What if I fail? What if nobody cares? What if nobody buys my stuff? Shopify can help make things easy. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S., from household names like Magic Spoon and Allbirds to brands just getting started. Shopify facilitates everything from inventory to payments to analytics and more. No need to use a dozen different software tools. Everything's all in one place, making your life easier and your operations smoother. And what if you get stuck? Well, Shopify is always around to share advice with their award-winning 24/7 customer support. You can get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand style. It's time to turn those what-ifs into ka-ching with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/awesomepod. Go to shopify.com/awesomepod. That's shopify.com/awesomepod. Ka-ching.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
For a small business owner, every day is full of surprises. Some great, some not so great. Like when a client cancels their order at the last minute. But here's a surprise you will like. Progressive provides small business owners with 30 customizable coverage options to help keep their business going strong. So go ahead, surprise yourself. Get a quote in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates and third-party insurers. Coverage is not available in all states or for all vehicles and coverage selections.
All right. And now could you share a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
Yeah. There's a quote from Prentice Hemphill that goes, "Boundaries are the distance with which I can love you and me simultaneously." And I love this quote because it really speaks to the fact that there is a way for us to hold both, hold ourselves and another person simultaneously, but we need to be able to protect our space and create that distance that will help us to facilitate that.
All right. And could you share a favorite study or experiment or bit of research?
Yeah. I mean, something that I quote a lot in my keynotes is shocking, actually, statistics from Forbes, where they found that over 50% of employees would forego a 10% pay increase to be able to just feel more connected at work, which was just mind blowing to me because you always think about how people just want to get paid more, which is important. But people, if they were making $100,000 a year, would give up $10,000 extra dollars in their pocket just to feel like their boss or a colleague cared about them and was connected to them. It really blew my mind.
All right. And a favorite book?
One of my favorite books is Simon Sinek's Start With Why. I love it because I think it really gets to the core of why we're doing the work that we're doing. And he's got so many great examples and case studies in there. It just is a masterfully written book.
And a favorite tool, something you use to be awesome at your job?
I personally have a routine that I do at the end of my day. I think that my after work routines are what helps me to be effective in my work. So I do like a virtual commute because a lot of my work is remote. So I'll go for a long walk. I'll physically change out of my clothes. I'll make sure to sit down and watch my trashy reality TV. They're all just part of my after work routine that helps to signal to my brain, you're done with work. And then when I do show up for work the next day, I'm able to be in the zone and focus.
All right. And is there a key nugget you share that really seems to resonate with folks that quote back to you often?
Yeah, I'll share two little gems. One is that we've confused communication with connection. People love that quote because we have Slack channels, we've got all hands meetings, we've got email exchanges, Teams meetings, but those are just focusing on communication. They're not actually forging connection and bonds with people. So people really like that one. And then the second one is that we don't slow down because stillness feels unsafe. We have these go, go, go schedules because we think that that's how we're going to avoid all of the stuff that exists within us. And if we did slow down, we would have to face the anxieties, the worries, the stress that we've been staving off.
All right. And if folks want to learn more, get in touch, where would you point them?
So 2 places. One, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. The second is through my website, nidhitewari.com. You can find my speaking offerings there and reach out to me through a contact form.
All right. And do you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs?
Yeah. I mean, I think that ultimately we all want to be doing better at work. We all want to be working well. But what gets in the way is these moment to moment exchanges that we have. I think every opportunity is a choice. You can choose to build trust or diminish it. You can choose to be connected or be disconnected. You can choose to attune or misattune. And the choice that you make in that moment is going to determine whether you're working well.
All right. Nidhi, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You know, time and time again, we hear about breathing and we think, yeah. Okay, sure. Yeah, breathing is helpful. But I find that when I actually do it, instead of think about doing it, know that that's maybe something I should do, it is very helpful and powerful. So I just want to suggest, if you're thinking, yeah, I heard the breathing before, okay, got it, what else you got, what's new for me, to actually pause and give that a shot and observe just what a transformation can happen pretty quickly. Great stuff from Nidhi. If you want to check out the show notes or the transcript or the links to items we've referenced, please drop on by awesomeatyourjob.com/EP1161. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.